Am I the man makeover of the week? Are you serious?
Yeah.
So I love my man, but what you mean, but?
Some marriages look bulletproof from the outside. 17 years together. A blended family built from broken pieces. A man who stood before millions and called his wife the reason he was still standing. Steve Harvey did not just marry Marjorie Bridges. He rebuilt his entire identity around her. He adopted her children. He credited her with saving his soul when everything else had tried to destroy it. He named her in interviews the way preachers name scripture, with absolute conviction and zero hesitation. So when the word divorce started circulating alongside Steve Harvey's name in the summer of 2023, the internet did not just react. It erupted. Because if this marriage could fall apart, what did that say about every piece of relationship advice Harvey had ever sold? What did it say about the man who had built an empire on the promise that love, done right, could survive anything? The answer is more complicated than any headline ever told you. And it starts not with a scandal, but with a pattern that had been building for decades before anyone was paying attention. In August of 2023, an anonymous post began spreading across social media platforms with the kind of velocity that only happens when a story hits something people already wanted to believe. The claim was specific and devastating. Steve Harvey had allegedly discovered that his wife Marjorie had been involved with two members of his own household staff, his personal bodyguard and his private chef. Men he had trusted, men who moved through his private world every single day. The bodyguard at the center of the story was not a stranger to the Harvey family narrative. The man known publicly as Big Boom was reportedly the very person who had reconnected Steve and Marjorie back in 2005 after years of separation. According to the story Harvey had told publicly many times, Big Boom looked at him one day and said the only time he had ever seen Harvey truly happy was when Marjorie was beside him. That conversation had led directly to their reconciliation and eventually their marriage in June of 2007. If the rumors were true, the man who built the marriage had also helped destroy it. The cruelty of that detail was not lost on anyone online, and the internet leaned into every inch of it. Harvey was in Atlanta at Invest Fest when the pressure became impossible to walk past. He stopped his scheduled remarks, looked out at the crowd, and addressed it directly. His voice carried that particular kind of tension that comes from a man holding himself together in public when everything inside wants to come apart. He told the room that he was fine, that Marjorie was fine, and that whatever people were doing with their time, they should find something else to occupy it. The crowd responded with laughter and applause. Marjorie posted a Bible verse on Instagram with a brief note that she and her husband did not make a habit of addressing lies. Then she went completely silent on social media for 3 months. Nigerian Senator Ned Nwoko later stated publicly that he had spoken directly with Harvey and confirmed the story was entirely fabricated. But a denial, no matter how credible the source, rarely travels as far or as fast as the original accusation. The rumor kept living in comment sections and podcast discussions for months after the formal denials had already been issued. That is the particular cruelty of the internet age. The correction never catches the lie. What made the public so willing to believe it without a single verified piece of evidence? That question matters more than the rumor itself. And the answer lives in the history Harvey carried into that marriage long before anyone on social media knew his name. Steve Harvey has been married 3 times. That fact is not a footnote. It is the emotional architecture beneath everything he built and everything he has ever been accused of. Each marriage represents a different chapter in the story of who this man actually is underneath the television persona, the best-selling books, and the perfectly tailored suits. His first wife was Marcia Harvey. They married in 1981 when Steve was still selling insurance policies and had never once stood in front of a comedy audience. They had twin daughters, Brandy and Carly, born in 1982, and a son named Broderick Harvey Jr., born in 1991. The marriage did not survive the demands of a comedy career that was just beginning to stir. The road took everything, nights, weekends, the kind of sustained emotional presence a young family needs to stay intact. Marcia raised all 3 children essentially alone after their divorce was finalized in 1994. Harvey fell so far behind on child support that a judge ordered him to pay more than $36,000 in back payments. Marcia never gave interviews. She wrote books, remarried, and moved forward quietly. But that first abandoned family left a shadow on his public record that never fully disappeared. His second wife was Mary Lee Shackelford. They married in 1996 and had one son, Wynton Harvey, born in 1997. Harvey would later admit in a People interview that he had entered the marriage for the wrong reasons entirely, that he was tired of being alone and had made a decision driven by loneliness rather than genuine love. The divorce was finalized in November of 2005. Court records showed Mary received $40,000 per month until 2009, a lump sum settlement of $1.5 million, and 3 separate properties. Harvey retained primary custody of Wynton. What followed was one of the most publicly bitter divorce aftermaths in American entertainment history. In January of 2011, Mary posted YouTube videos that accumulated more than 200,000 views. She claimed Harvey had been involved with Marjorie throughout their entire marriage, and that she had intercepted letters between them on her own wedding anniversary. She described years of pressure and intimidation from Harvey and his team. Harvey's legal representatives pointed to court filings that directly contradicted her financial claims. A judge found her in contempt of court for repeatedly violating a gag order and sentenced her to 30 days in jail in December of 2013. From behind bars, she told a Dallas television station that she had missed 6 years of her son's life and could not get those years back. In May of 2017, she filed a $60 million lawsuit describing the experience in terms that suggested profound psychological damage. Harvey's attorney called it meritless. The case was dismissed in February of 2018 on jurisdictional grounds. She never refiled. This history is essential context. When the 2023 rumors began circulating, a significant portion of the public already carried an impression of Harvey as someone whose private life did not always match his public sermons. That gap between the relationship expert on television and the man in the divorce courtroom made the accusations feel plausible in a way that pure fabrication rarely achieves. Before she was Marjorie Harvey, she was Marjorie Bridges, and her story is one that most people who follow Steve Harvey have never heard in full. Her first husband was Jim Townsend, a Memphis figure who received a federal life sentence for drug conspiracy charges. Marjorie was investigated by federal law enforcement in connection with that case and was never charged. Her path forward from that chapter of her life required the kind of quiet resilience that rarely makes for interesting television but speaks volumes about actual character. Steve Harvey first encountered her at a comedy club in Memphis in the late 1980s. She arrived late and took a seat in the front row. Harvey, by his own account, stopped his performance, looked directly at her, and told everyone in the room that he intended to marry that woman one day. She recalled thinking she was about to become an unwilling participant in someone's comedy bit. They dated briefly and separated. Harvey was financially unstable, the kind of broke that comedy careers in their early stages reliably produce, and the timing was not right. Both of them married other people. The reconnection came in 2005, prompted by Big Boom's observation that Harvey was only genuinely happy when Marjorie was in his life. They married on June 25, 2007. Harvey adopted her 3 children, Morgan, Jason, and Lori, and spoke about that decision with a sincerity that did not sound performed. He told People magazine that God had saved his soul and Marjorie had saved his life. Those words became one of the most quoted things he ever said publicly. At the Griot Awards in November of 2023, just months after the rumors had swept the internet, Harvey accepted an award and his voice broke when he spoke about her. He said that 85% of everything people knew about him had happened after he married that woman. The couple later celebrated their 18th wedding anniversary in June of 2025 with photographs taken at Lake Como in Italy. Whatever the internet had decided to believe, the photographs told a different story. To understand why Harvey's public identity is so uniquely fragile, you need to understand the Miss Universe incident, the night that turned a single misread card into the most viral television mistake of a generation. On December 20th, 2015, Harvey was hosting the Miss Universe pageant at the Axis at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. He had wanted a platform like this for years. He was prepared. And then he read from the card in his hand and announced the wrong winner. He called Miss Colombia. Ariadna Gutierrez was crowned. The tiara was placed on her head. 2 full minutes of live celebration broadcast to more than 190 countries passed before anything was corrected. Harvey walked back out, held up the card, and took responsibility on live television in front of the entire watching world. Staff physically removed the crown from Gutierrez and placed it on Pia Wurtzbach of the Philippines, while cameras captured every second of it. Harvey later revealed that the scorecard had been redesigned at the last minute without informing him, and that the winner's name appeared in a corner that his thumb was covering while he read. His apology tweet compounded the situation when he misspelled both countries before deleting the post and correcting it. Years later on Kevin Hart's podcast, Harvey reflected on what happened and noted that within 48 hours his name had been searched billions of times online. Gutierrez, the woman whose crown was removed in front of the world, eventually reconciled with him fully and said publicly that she loved him and it was not his fault. Harvey went on to host 6 more Miss Universe pageants after that night. He converted the most humiliating moment of his career into 6 more years of consistent work. That capacity, to absorb public disaster and rebuild immediately, is perhaps the most underappreciated quality he possesses. By 2024, Steve Harvey's net worth stood at approximately $200 million. Family Feud has been his financial anchor since September of 2010. He earns roughly $10 million per season and has become the longest-running and highest-rated host in the show's 50-year history. The Steve Harvey Morning Show reaches nearly 7 million weekly listeners. His book Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man sold over 2.8 million copies, spent 64 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, and was adapted into a film that earned $96 million on a $12 million budget. But beneath all of it runs a current that Harvey himself has described honestly and without apology. He once said that he is running from homelessness, that he cannot ever be in that position again, and that if one show gets canceled, he already has 3 more lined up. That is not conventional ambition. That is survival operating at the highest possible level, dressed in a custom suit. The fear he is running from has a specific origin. After his first marriage collapsed and comedy gigs were unreliable, Harvey lived out of a 1976 Ford Tempo for nearly 3 years. He kept an igloo cooler in the back seat with bologna and cheese. He hung his suits in the rear window to keep them pressed enough to wear on stage. He showered in gas station bathrooms and hotel lobbies. He gave 75% of whatever he earned, sometimes as little as $50 a week, to his estranged family. He stole fuel from gas stations to reach comedy bookings across the state. He described it as rock bottom. He also described a voice he heard during those years that told him to keep going and promised that places he had never been were waiting for him on the other side of the pain. That voice, or whatever it represented, was not wrong. The boy who was publicly humiliated by a 6th-grade teacher for writing that he wanted to be on television eventually sent that teacher a brand new television every single Christmas for the rest of her life. He told her he wanted her to see him. She eventually told him she had run out of places to put them all. Harvey told that story with laughter every time. The laughter never completely covered what was underneath it. The divorce that the headline promised never actually happened. Steve and Marjorie Harvey are still married. The rumors of 2023 were investigated, denied, and discredited. But the reason those rumors spread so far, so fast, and stayed alive so long even after credible denials had been issued, that reason is worth sitting with. When a man builds an entire public identity on the promise that he has figured out love, relationships, and loyalty, the world does not simply admire that claim. It waits. It watches. And the moment any evidence appears that the foundation might have cracks, it moves with the particular urgency of people who feel they have been given permission to doubt something they always found slightly too polished to be completely real. Harvey is not a saint. He has said as much. The trail of his life includes broken families, bitter courtrooms, public humiliations, accusations of joke theft that have never been cleanly resolved, and political decisions that cost him genuine affection inside communities that had championed him for decades. He has also funded full university scholarships in a young man's memory, mentored thousands of fatherless boys through his foundation, and built a philanthropic footprint that the tabloid coverage almost never touches. He is not a fraud either. The car was real. The bologna was real. The voice he heard in the darkness was real enough that he built $200 million on top of it. The paper he wrote in 6th grade, the one his father told him to read every morning and every night, eventually came true in ways that embarrassed every prediction that was ever made against him. What he is, the complicated, contradictory, fully human thing he actually is, sits somewhere between the highlight reels and the scandal headlines. It sits in the space where ambition and fear occupy the same body, where genuine faith and calculated self-preservation operate from the same mind, and where a man who has been wrong about important things can still be completely right about the ones that matter most. The divorce never happened, but the story of why everyone believed it could, that story is the most honest thing about him.